तदा तत् अहम ईशस्य तदा तदहम ईशस्य भक्तानां सम अभिप्सतः भक्तानां सम अभिप्सतः अनुग्रहं मन्यमानः प्रातिष्ठं दिशम उत्तरां तदा तदहम ईशस्य भक्तानां सम अभिप्सतः अनुग्रहं मन्यमानः प्रातिष्ठं दिशमुत्तरां तदा तदहम ईशस्य भक्तानां सम अभिप्सतः अनुग्रहं मन्यमानः प्रातिष्ठं दिशमुत्तरां तदा तदहम ईशस्य भक्तानां सम अभिप्सतः अनुग्रहं मन्यमानः प्रातिष्ठं दिशमुत्तरां तदा तदहम ईशस्य भक्तानां सम Synonyms: tada, at that time; tat, that; aham, I; isasya, of the Lord; bhaktanam, of the devotees; sam, mercy; abhipsataha, desiring; anugraham, special benediction; manyamanaha, thinking in that way; pratishtham, departed; disamuttaram, in the northern direction. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for His devotees. And so thinking, I started for the north. Translation with repetition: I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for His devotees. And so thinking, I started for the north. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. What is considered to be an odd or difficult movement in the mundane sense is accepted as special mercy of the Lord. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, and by the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished, and spiritual health is obtained step by step. Mundane people misunderstand it. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Advaita Gadadhara Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are seeing this in this chapter, the wonderful conversation which is happening between two exalted personalities, Vyasadeva and Narad Muni. Narad Muni is responding to the questions put forward by Vyasadeva. What did you do after those Bhakti Vedantists left? How did you pass your time? How did you quit your body? Which is an implicit question in that. And Narad Muni, in response to that, has been telling many things which we have been seeing. That how he was just a 5-year-old boy and his only shelter was his mother, only mother. He didn't have his father. And that to the mother is a maid servant, not very qualified. Bhagavatam says, Ekat maja me janani, Yoshin mudha cha kinkari. She was Yoshin, she was mudha, she was kinkari, she was a maid servant. Not very established or not very affluent. But that made the tie of affection very strong, sneha anubandhanam. Of course, the mother wanted to protect the child, yoga kshemam mamechhati. She wanted to take care of the child properly. But what she didn't know is that she is aswatantra. She is not independent, she is dependent. Sa aswatantra. Dependent on whom? Isasya hi vase loko yosha daru mayata. Not only she, it's all of us. We are actually controlled by the Lord, like Yosha Daru Mayata, like a puppet, wooden puppet which is controlled by a puppeteer. And then we saw in the last verse that we spoke, Ekada Nirgatam Gehad Duhantim Nishigam Pati Sarpo Dashat Padas Prashta Pranam Kala Chodita. Ekada, like it happens in most of the stories, once upon a time, when his mother was going for milking the cow, Sarpo Dasat Padas Prashta. There was a snake bite. And Kripanam Kala Chodita. The serpent bite was not known. It was not predicted. Nobody knew this. Kripana Kala Chodita. Because the cruel serpent of time, how it acts on whom, we don't know. And that has happened so far. And this verse, today's verse, is talking, how did Narada Muni react to this kind of incident? Imagine you are a 5-year-old boy. Madhav, how old are you? 11. So you're a 5-year-old boy, completely shelterless. One poor old mother, not old, poor mother who's there, who wants to protect. And that mother is also taken away by the Lord. How would you react? What do you do? Well, what did Narad Muni do? That's what we are trying to see. And what he did was exemplary, amazing. And let's see what it is. So the verse today is Tada Tadaham Isasya. So the last verse was Ekada. So once upon a time this happened. So that's why it starts Tada. Immediately after that, what did I do? Tada Tad Aham Isasya. That thing, I considered it to be Isasya Bhaktanam Sam. So Isasya, the Lord, actually gives benediction to whom? Bhaktanam. Abhipsata. The Lord always desires some benediction for his devotees. Tada tad aham isasya bhaktanam sam abhipshatah. Anugraham manyamana. I consider it to be a blessing. I consider it to be anugraham. It's a special benediction. Pratishtham disamuttara. I started for the north direction. Very beautiful, poetic Bhagavatam, Sanskrit. So I took this as the special mercy of the Lord. Aham isasya bhaktanam sam abhipshatah. So mercy of the Lord. Sam ishasya. I took this as the special mercy of the Lord. Aham tad. That thing, that the incident which happened, I took that as special mercy. Sam isasya. Who always desires benediction. Abhipsatah. Anugraham. So who's desiring benediction? The Lord. Who always desires, not that sometimes he gives problems, no. Who always desires benediction for his devotees, Bhaktanam, and so thinking, Manyamanaha, I started for the north. Pratishtam Disamuttara. Just to give you some knowledge, some trivia. Uttaram you'll find in many places in Bhagavatam. When Vidura comes and chastises Dhritarashtra, he says you should go in the direction of north. Uttaram. When Pandavas quit, they retire from their family life, they also proceeded towards the northern direction. Uttaram. Idea being, they go to Himalayas and take shelter and refuse and spend their time in self-realization. So that's why I started for the north. Now, what a wonderful purport in 4 or 5 lines. What Prabhupada makes this purport so interesting and brilliant. We need to have a little bit of eyes and appreciation to see this. Let's see this. Let me ask you a question. Suppose you have to embark on a journey. What do you think is the most important thing? Gyanji, अब निकले हो जाने के लिए घर से, कहाँ पता नहीं. Which is the most important thing that you need to have? Faith. Faith on what? Whatever directions, okay. Anybody else? Sai? The path. Okay. Huh? The goal. Wallet. Money. Huh? Passport. Okay. Anybody else online? Anything you want to say?
Generally,
it's not
luggage.
Luggage. Okay.
Your will, Prabhu.
What is that? Will.
Your will to get to the destination.
Okay. Desire, will, determination to get to the destination. Gyanji doesn't want to go to the destination, just wants to wander here and there. Right. Actually, one of the most important things which he told just sprang to his consciousness is the direction. Which direction I'm going to. Maybe you don't have a destination as a fixed destination, but at least you want to go somewhere. You're not just going and randomly just roaming here and there. You need to have the direction. And usually, in a journey, you may encounter some obstacles. But an obstacle is considered an obstacle only when you have lost sight of the goal or the destination. If you are really determined, as somebody said, will, if you are really willing to reach your destination, no obstacle is an obstacle. It's only when we lose sight of the goal or destination, it appears it's an obstacle. Now consider this, our life is also a journey. We all are embarking on this mystical journey called life. And as we saw that one of the most important things is to see the direction in which we are going. But this journey is not a smooth one, not a journey which is filled with roses, but it has got many obstacles. Obstacles can come in the form of poor health, can come in the form of reversals, can come in the form of taking away our shelters from our near and dear ones, can come in the form of very unexpected things. That's what the life is for all of us. So if those things happen, how do we see these obstacles as blessed by God or benedictory? Very interestingly, when I was searching for this word benedictory, the thesaurus, it says, it comes from the similar root word like benediction, and benediction means a blessing. So it's usually used in churches like Roman Catholic Church, who's using benediction. It's a short service consisting of prayers, the singing of some hymns, and the blessing of the congregation with the host, an expression of good wishes. If you see where I'm putting my cursor, there is one father who's blessing. So expressing benediction. So here, the first line of the purport confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. I'll read again. It's a very powerful sentence. If we can unpack this, maybe to some extent, whatever extent, our life is success. Confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. Direction is important in the journey. So this statement is telling confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. And benedictory direction is a direction which is in the form of a blessing, a benedictory direction of the Lord. My question to you is, in this class, from this one line of purport, I'm going to take one word, maybe one phrase, and we will talk about this. Can you think for a moment from this line, what is the most striking thing about this sentence? Every step, benedictory direction, okay? Benedictory, because I saw the thesaurus and explained benedictory.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Prabhu, each and every step we have to identify whether we are in the right direction or not.
Okay.
Confidential devotee.
Confidential devotees. Direction of the Lord. Confidential devotees. Research. Benedictory direction. Side. Confidential devotees. So family wale pura confidential devotees. Okay. See. Okay. Yes. Who is able to see this is very important. Confidential devotees of the Lord. Not everybody can see this. Confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step. They also, some of you identified in every step. So confidential devotees of the Lord not only see in some steps, in every step of their journey, everything that is happening is a benedictory direction of the Lord. But as Balram Prabhu guessed it right, I want to highlight the word see. Because ultimately, this is what makes the difference in life. Same experience we may all go through in our life, similar kind of experience. But how do we perceive it? How do we see it? In the last class, I didn't talk about one verse. I spoke about 3 verses, but I didn't speak much about the 8th verse, where it was mentioned, when I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in a Brahmana school. I was dependent on my mother's affection and had no experience of different lands. Dik Desha Kala Abhyutpanno. I had no, because as a 5-year boy, why did Bhagavatam mention something like this? I had no experience of different lands. What does it do if somebody has experience of different lands? Well, probably it makes one realize how tiny we are, how big the world is, how dependent we are on the Lord. But anyway, Narada Muni didn't have any of those experiences. He has specifically spoken about that. But in this today's verse, he is telling he is going towards the northern direction. What is this northern direction is very abstract in one way. But why is he able to go there? Why is he going in the northern direction? Because he is seeing it as benedictory direction of the Lord. It can happen in our life when we lose our near and dear ones. Death comes in everybody's life. Nobody is exempt from that. Very near, very dear person to you. All of a sudden he or she dies. How do you react? 99.99% of the people feel miserable. They curse. They get overwhelmed by the situation. Why me? This kind of questions come. They really don't find answers to this. But confidential devotees of the Lord, what does confidential devotee mean here? They are not disclosed to people. We don't know them. What does confidential mean here? One who follows the instruction of the Lord.
Prabhu, who knows the Lord Tattvataha.
Okay, you hold on to your answers. We will answer that. I don't want to get digress a lot. But as I said, pay attention to this word see, because this is what makes all the difference in life. Actually, in our Vedic scriptures, what Prabhupada tells us is a very powerful statement. If you just pay attention to this one statement of Srila Prabhupada, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. We don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. So who we are, we perceive the world as it is. I mean, as the world, based on who we are. We are putting a glass, a colored glass. The colored glass can be red, blue, or yellow, and the world appears like that. But what we don't realize is that our eyes are covered with this modes of material nature, or whatever those things, those ignorance, which is preventing us to see the world as it is. Where it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, very interestingly, Bhagavad Gita talks about this particular thing called Jnana Chakshu. How a person sees things differently. What makes a person perceive differently. Very interestingly, Krishna says in the 15th chapter, Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam vimudhananu pashyanti jnana chakshusha. This verse is so powerful. Actually, why some of us are not able to take to spirituality? Or when some problems happen, something happens, we're not able to deal with it. Here, one clue is given in this verse, or how our vision changes, how our understanding changes, how our life transforms. Utkramantam sthitam vapi. Utkramantam. There are two states which are mentioned here. Utkramantam is when we are quitting our body, when somebody dies, which may not be talked about, but all of us have to meet that one day. Utkramantam. You are forced to quit your body. Utkramantam sthitam vapi. Or we are situated, where are we situated? In the present body, and what are we doing? Bhunjanam va gunanvitam. Guna anvitam. These modes of material nature are controlling us, and being controlled by these gunas, being under the spell of those gunas, being charmed by these gunas, we are thinking we are enjoying in this body. Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam. Vimudha nanu pasyanti. The person who is foolish is not able to see all this. What is this Bhagavad Gita chanting? What is the spiritual activities? Why are you doing all this? Vimudha nanu pasyanti jnana chakshusha. This charma chakshu, this material eyes, we can't perceive this. But when we see it through the eyes of scriptures, through the eyes of knowledge, pasyanti jnana chakshusha, we can understand this. This is such a striking thing which happens all ways, all around, to everyone, to everywhere, sarvatra sarvada. Yet we don't see this. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Eyes of Narada Muni were trained. That's why the word that was used earlier was Vijnana Deshtrabhistava. Vijnana Deshtrabhis. When he got initiated by those Bhaktivedantists, they blessed him, and his eyes of knowledge were open. He could see it, he could perceive it. So if you really want to perceive those calamities which come in life, unsought, without any notice. One has to develop the knowledge, the eyes of knowledge. Pashyanti jnana chakshusha. Imagine if you have developed the eyes of knowledge, what will happen? Or before I go and say what happens when somebody has developed the eyes of knowledge, because we are talking about seeing. We will talk about what they see and how we can see, how we can develop that eyes. But before I go there, the one line that is there, Vimudha nanu pashyanti. Let's focus on that a little bit. Who are these Vimudhas and what they are not seeing? Have you seen a queue like this anytime? You've seen? Okay. Have you stood in the queue like that? Imagine if you are not there in the picture, you are behind. The queue is so big that it's not even coming in one lens of the camera. So what is happening in this queue is people are forced to go. As the person is entering, they are forced to go. Everybody is inching, they don't want to fully close. They're tightly standing. But what they are not seeing is where these people are going. Actually, all of us are there like this long queue. And the door which is there, which is closed, which is not seen, is the door of Yamaraj. We see sometimes some people with whom we become close when we are standing in the queue. These are our family members, these are our relatives, friends. Somebody is going somehow with some shortcuts, going and where is he going? He's gone, finished. But we are blissfully standing there. Actually, it's a very precarious situation. Vimudha nanu pasyanti. Every day we are marching, inching towards it. Going close, 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 and tap, over, finished. And not just that, somebody who's there, who's very dear to us, who's also standing. We make this dearness in this life with someone, and that person is maybe before us, maybe after us, somewhere, and he is finished. That gives us a shock. What happened? Where did he go? Pashyanti jnana chakshusha. But a person who has developed jnana chakshu, he is able to see what's happening, what's going on. So when such calamities happen, what do these people see? What Narada Muni could see? Very interestingly, Bhagavatam says, and if you remember this one verse in Bhagavatam, you'll develop better resilience, better understanding of how to cope with the situations, because when the situations come, we crumble. We become helpless, we become very vulnerable. We don't know how to deal with this. Very beautiful verse. It comes in Bhagavatam, in the prayers of Brahma to Krishna. The verse is, Tatte anukampam susamekshamano bhunjan evatma kratam vipakam ridbad bapubhir bidadhan namaste jivetayo mukti pade sadaya bha. Actually, this verse is so powerful because this verse is a clue which most people outside don't know or have no understanding. So Brahma's prayer is Tatte anukampam susamikshamano. Here the word used is anugraham maniyamana. Brahma is praying that anukampam. Tat te anukampam susamikshamano. Susamiksha. Samiksha is, iksha is, it comes from the root word eyes. Aksha, iksha. Susamikshaman. After having properly analyzed, after having understood this is what I am saying. Brahma is telling, Tatte anukampam. Actually, the Lord always puts us, it's a mercy of the Lord, it's a blessing of the Lord, wherever, whatever situation He is putting us in. Unfortunately, we are not able to perceive it. That's why it's called hand of God, today's topic, right? It is actually, I realized I should have told it as seeing the hand of God. Because what makes the difference is not hand of God, it is able to perceive that. When something happens, the person who has developed a jnana chakshu is able to perceive that this is mercy of the Lord. Even if it is the worst thing, because the Lord cannot do anything wrong for us. Tatte anukampam susamikshaman. The Lord has put us in extremely favorable condition for me to take up to this process of devotional service and go back home back to Godhead. purify myself and come out of this. He's creating the situation so that I take up to this process of devotion more seriously. Tatyanukampam susamikshamano. Then what about these problems which are happening? Brahma is telling, Bhunjan eva atmakritam. Atmakritam, it is done by me. Eva, certainly it is only by my past misdeeds. Bhunjan eva atmakritam vipakam. There's all these calamities, these miseries, these difficulties, these problems. Atmakritam vipakam. And Hrud Bhag Bapu Bhir Vidadhana Namaste. Hrud by hearts, Bhag by words, Bapu by this body. Hrud Bhag Bapu Bhir Vidadhana Namaste. Who is constantly engaged in devotional service. Jiveta Yo Mukti Pade Sadaya Bhag. He becomes a deserving candidate to achieve liberation. Jiveta, if he lives his life like this, Yo Mukti Pade Sadaya Bhag. He becomes a deserving candidate to get to liberation, Mukti. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Daya Bhak. This is how the devotees perceive. You want examples? I'll give you one story and one incident from Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so the story comes from, I just recently got one forward. It's from, just a story from forward. What happened was, there was a devotee, a very sincere devotee. And one day Krishna became very pleased with his sincere devotional service. So what happened when Krishna became pleased with his sincere devotional service? He appeared in front of the devotee. And Krishna told the devotee to join him for a walk in the town. Let's spend some time together. So they changed themselves. They are in disguise. You can see that there are two people who are standing in white dress. So they were in disguise in the form of Brahmanas. They're not looking like, but assume that they are. And they, while visiting in the city, they came across the house of a rich merchant. So, and the rich merchant was giving a feast. He was very happy that, some profit has happened in his business and he was just giving feast. So then Krishna and the devotee, they thought that let's have some prasadam, and they entered the house and requested for some food. And what did the merchant do? The merchant saw them and saw that, these are two poor Brahmanas, where did they come from? He got angry and enraged, and he called the watchman. Throw away these two people. So they were literally dragged and thrown outside. Then they got up, and when they were about to get up and go, Krishna suddenly said something. He said, I bless this merchant so that he gets more wealth. The devotee was shocked, but he didn't say anything. And then they went further. And when they went further, they found a sannyasi. And the sannyasi had one chapati. And when they said, we are hungry, he said, okay, I have one chapati, I'll make it 3 parts. I'll give you each one part. And the sannyasi also told, I have a cow, and I'll give you a little milk so it will fill your stomach. So they all had nicely prasadam. After taking that prasadam and milk, both thanked the sannyasi and left. So after walking for some distance, Krishna said, let the sannyasi's cow be stolen tonight. So the devotee now was just bewildered. Said, oh, what is this? What is going on? You are giving money to the rich merchant who had thrown us out, and you are taking away the cow from that poor sannyasi? This is what Krishna replied. The rich merchant is very much caught in his karma, that he is going to suffer after his death. So from his past good deeds, let him enjoy in this life. But the sannyasi is already free from all karma and very close to coming back to me. So Krishna said, I do not want him to get attached to that cow and enter again in the cycle of birth and death, as we know in the story of King Bharat, who got attached to a deer. So how the Lord works, in what way, is very difficult to perceive through our material mundane vision. Okay, you may say this is a story. What about some real life? Oh, real life, Srimad Bhagavatam. Here, Parikshit Maharaj, when he is cursed to die in 7 days, how does he take it? Very interesting words, very, very powerful. Tasyeva meghasya paravaresho vyasakta chittasya griheshu abhikshnam nirveda mulo dvijasapa rupo yatra prasakto bhayama sudhatte. This verse also should be very, very, actually, this verse should be memorized. We should know this verse. Very important verse. Tasyeva me agasya paravaresho. One of the names of the Lord is Paravaresho. Para, Avara, Isha. So who is the Lord of Para is transcendental and material. Para, Avara, Isha. Tasyeva meghasya. Tasyeva aghasya. So Parikshit Maharaj's attitude when he was cursed by the Brahmana boy Shringi, very powerful. He's telling, because I'm so sinful, Tasyeva me aghasya, Paravaresho, the Lord, who is the Lord of Para and Avara, material and spiritual world, Vyasakta chittasya griheshu abhikshnam. He knew that I'm Vyasakta chitta. My chitta is strongly attached. Asakta is attached, but Vyasakta chittasya. Attached to whom? Griheshu abhikshnam. I'm attached to my family members and to this house and so many things. Continuously, always, abhikshnam. Abhikshnam. That is why Nirveda Mula Dvijasapa Rupo. He has come in the form of this curse. Nirveda Mula Dvijasapa. Nirveda Mula, to develop that detachment. Dvijasapa Rupa, in the form of this Dvijasapa, the curse of this Dvija, the Brahmana. Yatra prasakto bhayama sudhatte. By that fear that suddenly this has happened to me, what should I do? I will develop this thing for Krishna. The translation is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of both the transcendental and mundane worlds, has graciously overtaken me in the form of a Brahmana's curse. Due to my being too much attached to family life, the Lord, in order to save me, has appeared before me in such a way that only out of fear I will detach myself from the world. Yatra prasakto bhayama sudhatte. Sometimes the detachment to the material world doesn't come despite so many things. One of the things which I had asked you in the last class was why Kunti Maharani is praying Sneha Pasam Nimam Chindi Dridham Pandusu Vrishnishu. Dridham Pandusu Vrishnishu. Actually, even though the Vrishnis and Pandavas are devotees of the Lord, there can be a chance where I consider them to be mine. They're my children, my parents' side. They are devotees. That my thing is still an attachment. So that is why there is a layer of, one of the classes I was telling that, the consciousness needs to develop. Sankuchita, in a very, in a narrow, in the worst kind of, like a bird, like, when the flower becomes blossomed, first what you see is a bird, which will be in green in color. Slowly one small sprout will come, a little red. And then slowly the flower will come and then it will become fully blossomed. Like that, sometimes when the consciousness is not developed, it is like that bird. It's called Sankuchita. Like the trees, the animals, even the mountains have consciousness, but very less developed. But then when of course, compared to trees, the animals have little more developed consciousness. But in human form of life, Sankuchita, Vikasita, and what is the third one? Mukulita. Mukulita is fully blossomed. So even in human beings, one can remain in a very narrow, constricted kind of a consciousness, only my bodily life, enjoyment, this kind of a thing, and finished. Life is gone. But when it becomes developed, when it becomes completely blossomed, they are called confidential devotees because they're realizing this. The difference comes when somebody realizes this thing instead of just theoretically understanding. My body nahi. मैं सुनता रहता हूँ, बड़ा बात बोलता हूँ, but nothing, no application in life. Nothing has gone inside because I have not realized it. So when that blossoming, the consciousness comes, then the way you respond to situations, the way you see things happening in your life will be very, very different. That is what happened in Parikshit Maharaj. Tasyeva meghasya paravareshu. Asakta chittasya. Who is Parikshit Maharaj? Is he really attached to family life? He's a devotee who's been protected by the Lord from his birth. But he's telling, Asakta chittasya griheshu avikshnam nirveda mulo vijasapa rupo yatra prasakto bhayamasana. Not easy to perceive these things. Not easy to perceive like this kind of a thing when Narad Muni, a 5-year-old boy, is seeing that the death of his mother is a benedictory direction by the Lord. Sometimes people go too much analysis into who is the cause. Why did this happen in my life? मेरे life में क्यों हुआ? उसके वजह से हुआ. That fellow has done this. This situation has done this. And so much of time goes in this. Finding the cause, trying to find a remedy for that. Parikshit Maharaj didn't do anything. He didn't counter curse. He didn't do anything. He didn't blame. He said, why this happened? Oh Lord, why did you put me? None of those. What happened by that? He could save time. He could think that this is blessing of the Lord. The Lord has appeared in the form of this Dvijashapa, in the form of this curse of the Brahmana boy, and he accepted it as Lord's plan and went and heard Bhagavad. Who was the cause? Very interestingly, I want to say this incident from Bhagavatam. I've already shared once. Once Parikshit Maharaj, when he was going in his kingdom, in his chariot, he saw that there was a very wicked, ugly-looking man trying to do something. He had some weapon in his hand. Next to this wicked-looking, ugly, evil man, there was a bull and there was a cow. And the bull was barely able to stand on one leg. 3 legs of the bulls are cut. And the cow is crying. Just tears are just gushing. Just crying. So when Parikshit Maharaj was such a big protector, king, kshatriya, devotee, he saw in my kingdom, how can this happen? He stopped there. Now imagine, it's like, 2 children who are being bullied in the school. Somebody is beating you. Suddenly Balaram Prabhu appears in the scene. So, and he is asking you, who did this to you? And those 2 people are standing like this. What did you say? What did the bull do? Bull is saying, I can't ascertain who has done this to me. The person is standing next to him. And he has cut already his 3 legs. And the pain is so excruciating, even the person who is seeing, the Mother Earth, Dhara, who is there in the form of a cow, she's shedding tears. Both of them could have said. But they are saying something very interesting. It's very interesting to know. Kechit vikalpa vasana ahur atmanam atmanah daivam anye pare karma swabhavam apare prabhu. So he's telling, actually, Bull is saying when he was questioned by Parikshit, who has done this? He said, I can't ascertain. And why I can't ascertain? He's telling, some of the philosophers who deny all sorts of duality declare that one's own self is responsible for his personal happiness and distress. Others say that superhuman powers are responsible, while yet others say that activity, karma, is responsible. And the gross materialists maintain that nature is the ultimate cause. So kisko blame karenge? Somebody is saying my past karma, somebody is saying my own self, somebody is saying that superhuman powers, somebody is saying Mother Nature. So is it that we can't conclude and just leave it like this, some 4 or 5 reasons, whatever the bull is saying? No. And that no is a very revealing one. So this is why we have to read Bhagavatam and see the purports of our acharyas. Brilliant purport to this verse, and probably the next verse where Prabhupada reveals this. Who is the real cause? See this. Srila Prabhupada writes, although the bull and the cow knew perfectly well that the personality of Kali was the direct cause of their sufferings, they knew it. They knew it means what they had experienced. but he is the direct cause of their suffering. Still, as devotees of the Lord, they knew well also that without the sanction of the Lord, no one could inflict trouble upon them. Thus, even if the devotees see the mischief mongers, they do not accuse them for the sufferings inflicted. They take it for granted that the mischief mongers is made to act by some indirect cause, and therefore they tolerate the sufferings, thinking them to be God-given in small doses, for otherwise the suffering should have been greater. This is Tatya Anukampam Susamikshamano, explained by Prabhupada in the purport. Without the sanction of the Lord, this will not happen. Don't blame the immediate cause. Superpower, Mother Nature, Prakriti, whoever it is, Atma, Karma, beyond that, the Lord is sanctioning it. Rather, because you are devoted, you are engaged in devotional service, the amount, the intensity is reduced. It's a smaller dose. This is the vision of a devotee. So we spoke about seeing and what makes that Jnana Chakshu, makes it a person to see, and what they see, we saw. Now, how do I see that? How do I develop that? That's the whole point. Okay. Now, how do I see that is a very interesting thing. Srila Prabhupada says about 2 words, which is very powerful. What are those 2 words? Jnana, Vijnana. Jnana is theoretical knowledge, which we all think we are spirit soul. We think we are part and parcel of the Lord, but Vijnana is practical knowledge or realized knowledge. Now, for example, Yanji, if I say this house shed, it came on its own. Will you agree? Why? No, but I don't see anyone. Let's say, okay, I'll say that no, some people came, some carpenters came, they did some framing work, some masonry people came, they did the foundation, and some electrician came, plumber came, they did all those things. But you'll say, where? I don't see them. They're not there. Knowledge? Oh, what knowledge? It just came. No? What is knowledge means what? There's a building which is coming up there. Do you think it's just coming? It's growing, expanding. Nobody is there actually. If I say that no, some plumbers come or something, no way. I didn't see any of them. After the temple is done, let's say building is over, somebody says that, who did this? It came up. What do you mean by who did this? Building decided to expand, it got expanded. How can it be? Somebody came and did, but I don't see them. So how do I believe it? I believe it because I know that this cannot be done by all of us. Somebody has come and done it. That part I am believing. How I am believing? Because I have full knowledge that it requires somebody else to come and do it. But in our life, so many things happen which we don't see that it is happening because of the Lord. Even if I know that, that is called theoretical knowledge. There is another thing called practical knowledge or realized knowledge. The more one develops that practical knowledge or realized knowledge, the more his response or reaction or seeing the hand of the Lord, it becomes easier. For example, if somebody is taken to a chemistry lab, a small child, maybe Madhav, before he does his practical experiments, he's been taken and some person, a chemist, is showing, he's just mixing some 2 chemicals and some big sound comes and a yellow fume comes. So what Madhav will conclude is maybe some 2 things, but some sound came and some yellow fumes comes. 2 chemicals are mixed. But the person who's doing, he knows what is the chemical experiment, when these 2 chemicals are mixed, what happens, why did that sound come, why did that sound come, why that yellow fume came, and what the yellow film is. He knows because he has done this practically, he has got realized knowledge. This actually is the key. Prabhupada, when once was asked by a lady in one of the classes in 1969, pretty early, she asked, how do you know Krishna? This was in Los Angeles. Prabhupada was talking about Krishna to hippies. All these people, Prabhupada was talking, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. And he gave a class, who is Krishna? Everything is over. Suddenly somebody comes, that lady is, how do you know who is Krishna? Just by talking about him? And what Prabhupada answered is pretty nice. Prabhupada said, these people are not talking. So he pointed out to his disciples, they're not talking, they have realized. Talking is the beginning, but there is realization. Just like when I did not come to your country, I was talking, America is like this, America is like that. But now I have come to America, I have realized what America is. Like that, one needs to realize who he is, realize his constitutional position with respect to the Lord. This is a very interesting thing which you may not have paid attention in Bhagavad Gita, but it's very elaborately Krishna talks about this. Let's pay some more attention on this. Another time, in a morning walk in Bombay, one guest asked Prabhupada, what is the distinction between Jnana and Vijnana? So Prabhupada answers, Jnana means theoretical knowledge and Vijnana means practical knowledge. Simply to know God is great, that is not sufficient. Guest, no, that is theoretical. Prabhupada, yes, that is theoretical. What does theoretical mean? You must know how great he is. That we have to learn from the Shastras, from the Guru, how great he is. Just like in the Brahma Samhita, Vedic, Yatova imani bhutani jayante. He is the source of all material elements. In him, everything stays. And after annihilation, everything goes into him. This is one understanding. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetanam. Today Prabhu was talking about that. How do we know that the whole thing is coming from him? How great the Lord is, just knowing God is great, okay, I have to do something. Not enough. How great the Lord is very important. I want to just leave you with two very powerful things from Bhagavad Gita about the distinction between Jnana and Vijnana, because just mere theoretical knowledge is not enough, though that is the first thing required. But it has to transform into practical knowledge, the realized knowledge. Practical knowledge means experience. I myself have experienced how the house is getting built. I don't need to really go and search from some theoretical books or something, from some thesis or some other source to say how the house gets built. It's an experience. Once you have an experience of it, your conviction, your action, your words, they're all very different. So you go and see this purport in 3.41 Bhagavad Gita. Very, very powerful verse, because this is in the series where Krishna is talking about how to slay this eternal enemy called lust. Prabhupada writes in the purport, Jnana refers to knowledge of self as distinguished from non-self or matter. Jnana refers to knowledge of self as distinguished from non-self. Or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vijnana refers to specific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and his relationship to the Supreme Soul. So Jnana is all about the distinction between matter and spirit. But Vijnana refers to the specific knowledge. Jnana is more generic knowledge. Vijnana is specific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and his relationship to the Supreme Soul. It is Sambandha Jnana. It is explained thus in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Jnanam Paramaguhyam me yad Vijnana Samanvitam sa rahasyam tadangam cha grahana gaditam maya. This is quoted by Prabhupada in the purport of this verse. The knowledge of the self and supreme self is very confidential and mysterious. But such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with the various aspects by the Lord himself. So this is not, it's a very confidential thing. Param Guhyam me, knowledge of the self and supreme self is very confidential and mysterious. Yet Vijnana Samanvitam sa rahasyam, it's a mysterious thing. But such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with the various aspects of the Lord himself. Bhagavad Gita gives us that general and specific knowledge of the self. The living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord, and therefore they are simply meant to serve the Lord. One more place which you should go and see is when in 13th chapter, where Arjuna is asking this question, what is Jnana? What is knowledge? And immediately Krishna answers that in the beginning itself, saying that The sign of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its owner is called knowledge. This is my opinion. To understand this body and its owner is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Matamidam. When Krishna says Matamidam, you should not argue. What is knowledge? He is telling that to understand that this body and its owner is called knowledge. And there is one more place, which is, of course, there are in 7.2 also it is mentioned, phenomenal and nominal knowledge. But in one more place, in 13th chapter, 35th verse, last verse of 13th chapter. Very, very interestingly, the purport you have to read. I can read, but it's a very, very interesting thing how this jnana, theoretical knowledge, transforms to realized knowledge is given. In the purport, the last line I'm just reading, these things are meant for contemplation and for realization. One should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of this spiritual master. These things are meant for whatever those things, I don't know, you have to, if you read only, you'll not read, you'll not get it. But he's saying, Prabhupada is writing the last line of the purport of the 13th chapter, these things are meant for contemplation and for realization. One of the ways of realization is contemplation and introspection. Otherwise, every action of ours, we will justify that. A person who, it requires a tremendous amount of humility. It is not a simple thing. Talking from different places, sources, and coming and giving a class is very easy. Very easy. It's not so difficult. But if we really want Vijnana, realized way, it has to manifest in our behavior. And that realization doesn't come easily. Narada Muni got realized by special mercy. One is contemplation and introspection. The other one is mercy of the Lord or mercy of the spiritual master. But how do you become a deserving candidate for receiving this mercy? By following his instructions 100%. So in this, these things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of a spiritual master. You can't understand some of the things. In some places, this jnana also is interchangeably used as vijnana. We have to see the context, we have to see the way our acharyas have explained, and then only we get the understanding of it. So, as I said, the most important thing in this verse that we took today is how do we see things in our lives, especially things when they are not favorable, especially things which we never expected that happened and that is unpleasant. How do we see that? To be able to see it in the right way, you have to develop jnana chakshu. And we saw how when somebody has developed jnana chakshu, what he sees. And then we also saw, sometimes when people try to find out what is the cause, why this bad thing happened to me, how it is futile and inconclusive, and how Prabhupada says that actually there is a hand of the Lord, which without the sanction of the Lord, this cannot happen. Don't just get caught up in the immediate cause, this, that, and all. And the second thing is, how do we develop it? It is by not just restricting ourselves with this jnana and being satisfied with that, but seeing how I can transform this jnana to big jnana. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments.
The only place where the Lord partly realized how to understand that. But normally, the normal understanding of that knowledge is only that small portions of that. But until the some person becomes very firmly established, because of the like the example that we gave about the way you know that this thing will happen automatically. You can see that ordinarily, but then, like the 9th chapter also in Bhagavad
7 point. Yad Jnantam Mokshasena 7.1.
party knowledge and significant knowledge. And I remember that this verse that of course, the first verse of our words, So the first word he says, let this be, let realize knowledge be in your heart, in the knowledge, and it becomes as firmly established in Brahmaji as if he had actually seen all of it happen. So that realized knowledge, how does it get imparted like that? Or can it, how to get that? Because otherwise, normally we wait for knowledge to be done.
So I don't know if you heard the question here. The question is, we can get realization by our experiences, and they add up to our realized knowledge. But sometimes we see that in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, there are instructions where the Lord imparts this knowledge, both jnana as well as vijnana. So how do we become? How does one get this vijnana? The first thing is when you say that through our experiences we get realization, true, but not 100% true. Many things happen in our life from which we learn some things, but we really don't implement. Experiences are required for realization, but not the only thing for realization. For example, there is a term called smashana vairagya. When you go to the crematorium, you automatically develop some renunciation or detachment. But you come back, you forget it. It's an experience which you had there, but it is not staying with you. That's why it is smashana vairagya. Many things we experience, we realize that I should not have done like this. I should not behave like that. But we are not able to control it. So that is required. That's how somebody learns. Yes, that becomes realized, but not always, not 100%. It contributes to that. How does then one become a recipient of Vijnana? This is actually the 13th chapter, the 35th verse purport, which I was telling you to read. I'll read the first paragraph. It has a clue. The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body and spirit, between the body and the owner of the body, and the super soul. A faithful person should at first have some good association to hear about God, and thus gradually becomes enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, he can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. The spiritual master teaches his students to get free from the material concept of life by various instructions. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic considerations. So one of the clues that we can take from here is, spiritual master instructs the disciples in various ways to make himself free from this materialistic considerations. So accepting bona fide spiritual master, if one accepts a spiritual master, he can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit. He can learn to distinguish. And that is a stepping stone for further spiritual realization.
The differentiation of matter and spirit is jnana.
Yes, as per 3.41, this is jnana. And knowing that it's not just the distinction between matter and spirit, we are also having a relationship with the Lord, that sambandha jnana, that is vijnana. At least in that purport it is. Yeah. That's why when we sing the song, Divya Gyan Hriday Prakasito, so it's a causeless mercy of the spiritual master. He gives that to us based on certain qualifications of ours. One very key, crucial thing which you see and you can find is sincerity and humility. This cannot be, it's not a knowledge which you can somehow else just master it and take it. A lot of humility is required. One thing which Prabhupada discloses, this is a very interesting thing. Somebody may say that jnana, though it is referring to theoretical knowledge, I can get it from anywhere. But even to get jnana, we have to go to a person who is realized. That jnana comes from the spiritual master who is realized. There is no other way. You can't get it by your own self. But at the same time, it transforms to realized knowledge only when you do devotional service. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshandi te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. That seva makes the purport says. It transforms the theoretical knowledge to realized knowledge. And at the same time, you should also hope and beg for the mercy of spiritual master.
Because in that same also,
Because of his austerity, because of his penance. He heard that tapa and sincerely sat and did that for thousands of years. When that happens, then the response of the devotee, that response of that person automatically changes. He is able to perceive. You don't have to, kya karu, it's there, we have to ask and all, but you don't become bewildered. Artificially, one cannot do this. I'm a equipoised person. Can't take it. This comes. So that to the degree our jnana is getting transformed to vijnana, or to the degree we have realized, that degree we will be peaceful and quiet. Because we are seeing the world as we want to see it, not as it is. And what we are, based on our past conditioning and things, we are somewhat whatever we are. Needs to. Any question?
Hi, Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry,
Yeah.
if there's time for one question.
Yes, yes, please. Yeah.
Prabhuji, you were talking about from the last session about how Kunti Maharani she prayed to Lord Krishna about severing the ties of bondage or the relationship with her family members. And then again, you were mentioning about how, what's the problem? Because they're all devotees. They're all in the path of realization. And then coming to today's verse, severing the relationship is fine, but as long as you have that vijnana, they're all realized devotees. Like Kunti Maharani, all the Pandavas, everybody in the family, Vrishni, all the family members are realized devotees. I don't know, is it because the familial relationship is as such an obstruction to vijnana?
Okay, let me answer this question, because sometimes it is very difficult to understand when such prayers are there, especially when you know that your family is your support, when they themselves are practicing devotional principles. So, to answer this, actually, Chanchalpati Prabhu, in one of the classes, he had given this example. I think many of you will remember. Very nice example. So, if you come to the city of Boston, let's say, and you want to find out, you want to do a survey of how many people in the city of Boston are learning mathematics. You do a survey, you will find so many. Some children who are going to schools, they are also learning. Some people who are going to some college, they're also learning mathematics, but there will be some students who probably are there in Harvard or MIT who are doing their PhD or postdoc in mathematics. Now, they all are studying mathematics, but the degree and the level to which they are learning are different. A postdoc or a PhD student, what he is learning, you can't teach that to a person who's starting mathematics in a school. Like that, there are Vedic injunctions which are there for different people for different levels of consciousness. Yes, when we take up to devotional life, all our karmas get burnt, and there are stories of all this. There are instances of Sudama when he became rich, the fruit selling vendor, this thing got transformed. These are all there. Even the what do you call this? Christian the prayers that, oh God, give me my daily bread. Oh, what is that? Hallowed be thy name. Give us our daily bread. Nothing wrong with that. But that's all beginning. It's a beginning stage. But as one advances, actually that is called karma mishrita bhakti. Usually all family members, all of us, we pray for the well-being of all of our family members, right? Let my husband be okay, my wife be okay, my children also, everybody should be fine. This is what we pray, but saying that, sever my ties of affection is very difficult to understand. That's why this is a PhD level or postdoc level mathematics. This kind of philosophy is there when you advance, when your consciousness becomes blossomed, there is a place for it. Or let me give this example, maybe it is easier to understand. Let's say when somebody comes to Krishna consciousness, we say, you eat till here, prasadam, but eat prasadam. But then after you practice and come, many years pass by, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, "Bhalo na paibe and bhalo na." Don't eat some palatable dish and don't dress yourself very opulently. अभी तक तो बोल रहे थे खाओ खाओ सब गुलाब जामुन bullets सब है, then why there is a restriction which is coming? So as one advances, the expectation of the devotee, the expectation from each one of us also changes. So artificially one should not do, now I have to sever my relationship with my parents, my children, and I'll go somewhere. That will not work because we are not there in that position. But we can appreciate, we can understand and appreciate this once our consciousness becomes developed, blossomed. What she is praying is not something which is unjust or very impragmatic or something like that. It's very, very real. It's an important thing. Just to be able to appreciate also is a big thing. I don't know if I answered.
Sure, Prabhu. Yeah, that answers mine. Yeah, definitely. Very enlightening. Thank you.
Any other question? No other question. Read 13.35 purport. Read 13th chapter. There are items of knowledge which Krishna describes also. 20 items of knowledge. The rest all he says is ignorance. These are out there, and when we have these things with us, and not just theoretical knowledge is definitely required at least to be able to discern between matter and spirit. But realized knowledge makes us respond to the situations in the right way. And we will continue to see this wonderful incidents which are happening in Narad Muni's life, and as vividly he's describing, and we see in this subsequent verses. There's a lot to learn, actually, a lot to learn from this chapter. So we will stop here and meet next week. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna.